members of the human family. Today is the 5th of June 2024. Welcome to the General Durability Podcast. I am Othmane Wagdi in Mohammedia, Morocco, and my guest is Christian Müller, a German biodiversity expert, and he is with us to help us in our quest for knowledge, ultimately self-knowledge. Willkommen, Christian. Wie geht's dir?
Hi, thank you for the warm welcome in German. I have
Yeah.
learned that you speak excellent German.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Can you please tell us a bit about yourself and how it came to be that you engage with biodiversity and syntropic farming?
Mhm. Well, a little bit about myself. I'm a polymath, polyglot person, so I speak also a couple of languages, and I have lived already in different places on this beautiful planet. And I have also done a lot of different things in my life already. I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I have created, run, and consulted a lot of businesses during my 50 years of life. And something around the starting of the 2000s, I started being more interested in in agriculture and also in a way into nature itself, because I had felt that I had distanced myself a lot from nature in my adult years and in my professional life, mainly sitting in front of screens. So I started to get into the topic more, and I also moved back then from Germany to the Cape Verdean Islands in 2007 and lived there for nearly a decade.
Yeah.
And there I started to do my first baby steps in terms of soil, in terms of agriculture, farming, but on a on a really experimental and hobby level. I have too much respect for the profession of farming, of agriculture, to actually claim that I would be a farmer. I would have ever have done it,
Yeah.
but yes, I and that brought me to well, it really started in the beginning with my fascination for terra preta, which I had learned about back
Yes.
then.
Yeah.
And then, well, I was very naive in the beginning and thinking that it would be nearly a matter of chemical components of the soil to actually get terra preta. And then that led me also to Masanobu Fukuoka, who is the godfather of natural farming, which is um, which is a way of Zen farming, a type of Buddhist farming, I would say, who worked already in the 60s and 70s of the last century. And with that, I also became more and more interested in permaculture. So I went into that, and I have not really been satisfied so much with permaculture. It felt a little bit incomplete to me. Although, of course, like also experimenting with principles and concepts from it, which was nice, and seeing also its utility in terms of a design framework, I was not so convinced in terms of big agriculture and the actual agriculture industry and what type of opportunities we would have to move from the destructive extractive uh, principle that we see nowadays in
Yeah.
farming towards a big scale regenerative agriculture. And I guess I was not even aware of the name regeneration back then. So it
Yes.
was of the term. So it's all relatively fresh back then. So, and I'm also, because I saw that I couldn't do a lot where I was at that point, I moved back to Europe, to the Western Iberian region, and so Mediterranean climate, and I felt also that I would be better for me to work in. And I had learned shortly before via a small docu. It's a 20-minute movie which is called Life in Syntropy.
Life
And
is
this movie features the work of Mr. Ernst Götsch, who is a Swiss-born researcher and farmer. and who has spent nearly 50 years in Brazil um, revolutionizing cocoa farming. So he bought a depleted plot of land, which was absolutely overgrazed. It was basically a desert when he bought it. People were laughing at him and said that he could never do what he wanted to do, especially cocoa. And he said, no, no, this earth will give us everything here. And he started. And well,
Courageous.
yeah, very courageous. Yeah, he is anyways a bold guy, really a hero somehow, an iconic figure. And and then I learned that he would come to Europe. I went to meet him and to spend a couple of days. We had a workshop. We talked a lot, and we met also a lot of great people that were there. And yeah, that was kind of the foundation of what became RECELIO, the organization I'm working for, which I represent. Um, so lots of people that have been there in Olot back then uh, are now friends of ours, or we work together with them, or they are parts of RECELIO.
Yeah.
And well, yeah, since then we have done a lot of things um, and involved in a lot of different areas. And we are on an ongoing quest of solving the biggest issues that we see um, that are keeping regenerative agriculture and especially syntropic farming from not being widely adapted. So,
Uh,
and that's where we're working on. And that's probably also why we speak today.
yeah, nice, nice. Read a little bit of your work and kind of wanted to interview you to go a little bit in deep. Yes, for me, I have a mechanistic background, so I am studying since I was in school. I have a school degree in mechanical engineering. Later studied mechanical engineering at the university in Morocco. Then moved to Germany, studied international civil engineering. Continued my studies in Denmark. So I'm mainly mechanistic. So I have nothing to do with nature, but I grown up on a swamp, a healthy swamp. This swamp is unfortunately dead. So when I came to Morocco in 2020, I've done a visit. I saw the swamp where I was raised is completely gone. There is there is no biodiversity. There's almost a desert. But while I was growing up, there was hundreds of thousands of birds flying around, and it's crazy that it could happen so fast. And this is why I've stopped civil engineering and started studying different things, uh, including biodiversity. What it does biodiversity actually mean? Why is it important? Can you tell us? Can you define for me or for the viewers what do we mean by biodiversity?
Wow, this is like it's complex, very
Yeah.
complex, and a lot of
Yes.
people struggle also to understand what biodiversity really means. Um, well, let me explain it like that. Biodiversity is the library of life. Biodiversity is like if you imagine a library that has thousands of books and that
Yeah.
contains all knowledge of us of humans, then biodiversity is that when it comes to life. Biodiversity is a fractal system, so it means it happens on all levels of life. So it happens on a universal level, it happens on a planetary level, and then it happens also in our human layer, and it happens, of course, also in the micro layer, like the soil, for example.
Yeah.
Um, so um, biodiversity, like I said, happens on different layers, which means that biodiversity means the diversity of landscapes, of different landscapes. It means also the diversity of different species. So like all types of different animals, mushrooms and plants that you
Yeah.
know. It means also the interspecies diversity. So there's not just one apple, there's a lot of different types of apples.
Yes. Yeah.
And within that, the genetic diversity, which is not so easy for people to understand. Um, a plant, um, when you look at it, you don't see really that it has genetic diversity. But what it means is that it is the result of millions of years of evolutionary process. And all the learnings that have been done during that time are contained in those plants, especially in the seeds. So this plant might generally not know anything about a drought, but it is genetically equipped by information of its ancestors to handle this drought. And trees, for example, they produce also different types of seeds depending on how the conditions are. Yeah. So they give seeds certain properties that will help the offspring then to grow and to thrive. So and generally you can even say that our cultural diversity is a part of biodiversity. So us humans, or call it an intraspecies diversity, it's also very important that we have a big genetic pool, that we keep uh, genetically diverse, and I would say the same for culture as well. So it's very important. I mean, we have a global culture, which is also good
Well,
in a lot of
yes.
terms, but we need to keep, um, yeah, we need to protect and save the cultural heritage that we have as well. So
Yes.
that's a little bit like in a nutshell. Um, so when we lose biodiversity, then this has always collateral effects. It has always um, cascading effects, and that again that happens on all type of levels, fractal levels. So when we lose a certain type of landscape, like let's say like polar zones, for
Yeah.
example, then that is a huge issue because we lose that diversity that makes us um, to be more exposed to any type of challenges that come then in the future. And that goes with species. We extinct at the moment, I think around 20 to 30 species of which we know per day as humans.
Boom.
So that's a lot of
That's too
species that we
much.
lose.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you see in genetic diversity, we actually we are committing a huge mistake, as some of us have decided to genetically modify seeds and living beings, to patent them and to make profit with that,
Yeah.
which brings us also to what I call stupid seeds, because these seeds don't contain this diversity anymore, this heritage, this genetic information anymore from the past. Um, and yeah, that makes them very vulnerable. And that is also why then the exact same companies that actually commercialize and sell these GMO seeds also sell all the chemicals to support and to fight pests, etc. pp. Because again, those type of seeds are not really working.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's why biodiversity is really important. People don't understand, right? That is like, often people think like, yeah, but what do I care if like we have no polar bears anymore, or no pandas, or no whales. But each element of Earth, which to me is a macroorganism, it is a living being, has an inherent function and is important. Really, every little critter, every soil organism, every bacterium, everything is important. You are important,
Yeah.
and everyone who's listening to this is also
Yeah.
important, because we have an ecosystem service function, and that is so if we lose a species, then this has always effects, and it can affect us pretty fast. It can get nasty very fast, which most people try to denial or to not see or to ignore or something.
Yeah, it's comfortable to do that. Yeah, because yeah, if you start to see the bigger picture, you have to take responsibility. That's why I talk always just only not about rights. I talk only about responsibilities. And
Yeah.
yeah, really sorry to say this. I really don't care about the polar bears if they go extinct. But yeah, they are as far too away because I
You
see.
see?
Yeah, I read a lot of. I'm familiar with the climate change story since 2015, and have been engaged with the youth of the Green Party in Germany already in 2016, and kind of did like the direction they were going in. Caring about the polar bears, but no one was talking about the biodiversity in the soil. It's kind
Yes.
of hypocritical. I didn't like this direction. Uh, can you please? I have one very important question. In my last episode of this podcast, we
Hmm.
talked also about biodiversity in the gut microbiome. And
Yes.
Madam Sarah Turner told me that is hugely important. That is for the human function, for the brain, for the heart, for everything. Uh, can because you have mentioned the soil, so the biodiversity in the soil and the genetics of the plants. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How it could influence the gut microbiome?
Yeah, well, that's super interesting. I'm certainly not an expert, and
Yeah,
she is an expert on
she
that,
is an
especially
expert. Yes, yes,
the gut microbiota or microbiome. Well, look, the point is that we as humans we are deeply interconnected with soil. Humus and humans is by for a reason that we have the same word, the core word,
yeah.
so we
Almost.
come
Yeah,
from soil, and we are deeply connected to it. So I haven't had the chance, although you shared the link with me already, but I
yeah,
hadn't the chance to watch it actually, what she said. But the point is that the gut microbiome is responsible for a lot of health related and
yes,
function
yeah,
related things in our body, and it's very good to have diversity in your guts as well. So this diversity helps you actually to create immunity. It has even protective effects against certain bacteria and other pathogens and things, and it gives us the chance also to access nutrients, right? So you need certain components in your guts
yeah,
to access the nutrients in food. So
yes,
if you don't have them, then you can eat the same thing as someone else who has them, and your body is not actually able to access those nutrients, while the other one who has these microorganisms has the capacity to get to the juicy stuff. So what does that have to do with soil? Why is that important? Well, if you just look at a chemical biological level, then you will see that there is a lot of similarities also in terms of species that live there. So there is a lot of bacteria, for example, that are prominent in the gut and in the soil.
yes,
And you know, soil is also a living organism, and it has very similar functions to our guts when we look at us, at our own system, how we work. And by eating food that is grown on healthy soil, you get all these good things from the soil into your guts and can then use it for your organism to sustain it and to regenerate and to stay healthy and to become healthy. So like as an example, there's this phenomenon, geophagy, that often little kids, toddlers, you can be seen eating dirt, eating soil.
Yes.
So even like in an urban environment, you will see like babies going to like vases where plants
Yeah.
are and just grab soil and eat it, right?
Yeah.
So, and that is something that has, of course, like a lot of different reasons. It's not just like one reason. So
It's
there is like,
instinctive.
yes,
Instinct. Yeah. Yeah.
it is a type of
Mm.
instinct that we have. We
Yeah.
all do it somehow. And so science, there is science about that, and they look at it from different perspectives, of course, and try to reduce it on certain things to understand it better.
Yeah.
So there's a biological component that we talk about, but there's also social and cultural components about that. And there's even there are studies that show, for example, that in societies where there is malnutrition and nutrients lacking, kids are, for example, more often eating soil and stuff like that. So it's a direct adaptation to the environment that kids actually do. But from a biological, chemical standpoint, what is interesting is that there seem to be components in soil that we cannot create ourselves. So we need to either eat soil or eat plants that have these components from the soil.
Yeah.
So, and that's the point. So actually, to be healthy, you need to have food that comes from healthy soil. Surprise, surprise.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's important. I just want to inject here an idea. I do swim regularly in the ocean.
Hmm.
And after each swimming session, I have a very good week. I do think that
Hmm.
some bacteria comes through the skin or something like that. I don't know exactly how, but it definitely there is something also to it. Because I do feel very, very well for a certain period of time, but after 2 weeks, it's kind of it went away, so I have to
Hmm.
repeat that. So about a
Hmm.
week is it goes away.
Yeah,
Very
you
interesting.
should swim as often as possible in the ocean.
Yeah.
No, it's of course healthy. I have done that every day, nearly every day. When I during the decade in Cape Verde, I lived directly at the ocean, and
Yeah,
I really
nice.
I tried to jump in every day, and
Yeah.
normally I did if I didn't have to run errands or so and had really no time. So, and it's for sure very healthy. It's a type of uh, youth spring, you know. But I wanted to just give you a hint to check on negative ions in regards to that, because it
Negative
has a lot.
ions.
Yeah, it has a lot
Yeah.
to do with that. That is also what you receive when you do forest bathing, for example, when you go into forests,
Yeah.
and that is a in stark contrast to our built environment, where we
Yeah.
usually don't have that. If you don't have an AC, for example, that has ionizing and that works with that effect. But yeah, we can literally recharge ourselves by being at the ocean or swimming in the ocean or being in a forest and taking a bath in a forest. Yeah.
That is
So,
nice. That is very important to do because if
yeah.
when we are healthy, we could contribute positive to the world. If we don't feel well, we can't do that. Uh,
Yeah,
let's
of
let
course.
let's uh,
This is
let,
one of the, I always say, sorry, Othman, I always say, like, look, there's, when you really, really boil it all down,
yeah,
then there's like when people ask what should I do, right? Also, when you look at collapse and you know
yeah,
how frustrating it is, and that you feel that you cannot really change anything about that predicament we're in. But then I tell myself also, look, there's three things that really matter, and that's health, family, friends, you know,
yes,
and that's really the thing. So health is where it all starts, you know. We need to be healthy, and this is also part of our inner regenerative path to be healthy. And without us being healthy, we will never make our environment to be healthy. So it's very
yeah.
important to look at that as well.
Yeah, that's a very good perspective. I agree 100%. Uh, let's define a little bit what people mean by regenerative agriculture. Uh,
Yeah.
is it like something like agroforestry? Is a big difference to permaculture,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
can or can we frame can also add agroforestry and permaculture as regenerative practices?
It is often done like that.
Yeah,
Like agroforestry, for example, is seen as a practice, as a method or a practice
Yeah.
in regenerative agriculture. And with permaculture, really, I see, but this is really this is really my personal opinion, right? I have nothing against permaculture. I use permaculture principles and things in my own vegetable garden and things like that. So, but it is to me more a type of design framework
Yeah.
and less a type of agriculture. You know, you wouldn't say permaculture agriculture. I mean, permaculture tries to bring those together: perma agriculture, permanent agriculture.
Yeah.
So, but it is for sure, you can for sure talk about agroforestry and permaculture as being parts of a type of regenerative umbrella term. Um, well, can it be defined? Well, that's actually a question a lot of people are fighting about and talking and debating it. Can we define um, regenerative agriculture? Yes or no? And then you will see that there are certifications, for example, that make a type of definition to have a definition, but there is no commonly agreed definition of regenerative agriculture. So, but it is mostly defined by its principles, right? So regenerative is first is a type of holistic agriculture that looks at the entire ecosystem. So it looks at soil, it looks at water cycles, it looks at biodiversity, and not just at a single thing. It is it uses principles that are contributing to soil health and carbon sequestering. It takes care of water management actively. It aims to reduce chemical inputs, especially synthetic chemical inputs. It is also, especially Rodal Institute has it in a definition, integrating domesticated animals, often called livestock, which I hate. I
Yeah.
hate the term livestock. So, but it does that, and it does that in certain ways that are mimicking natural systems. So that is like mob grazing. Basically, it's mob grazing and rotation systems. So like big flocks or big groups of animals are on one place for a very short time and then move on. So that's
Yes.
what's used. And well, that's I think is this the basic principles of regenerative agriculture. And what is very important, but which is also open for debate, of course, is that it is outcome defined. So that is something, or outcome oriented, let's call it like that. So that is something that is in contrast to something like, for example, organic agriculture, right?
Well,
Organic agriculture, or bio, how it's called in other parts of the world, um, is something that looks very much to the methods and techniques and substances used in those systems, but it doesn't really look at the outcome. So in regenerative agriculture, you look at an outcome. So the outcome might be, for example, the enhancement of biodiversity, or it might be soil health. So you look at it, and if you ask me, it should be holistic. So it should not just focus on one, but there is one thing that it also means when you look at the outcome is that you actually are adaptive and you're dynamic. And that means that you look at every single special case. Every farm is different. And not only every farm, because like even there's like a lot of different places within the farm that are
yeah.
different to each other. So we need to understand that, look really at the conditions that we find, and then define outcomes that we want to see. And then we're going to implement certain certain measures, certain actions, things that we're going to do, and we're going to measure the outcomes of that. But that means also that everyone can start doing that, and that is actually a message of hope, because it's a little bit different if you want to switch to organic, for example. than if you want to switch to regenerative agriculture, because you can really look at your biggest needs as your biggest pain points that you have on the farm, and then you can define outcomes that you want to see. For example, less fertilizer usage, less water usage, um, less less sick farm hands, helpers, etc.
Yeah.
Like lower missing times of people, so that and stuff like that. So you can really define it, and then you will look for approaches to do that. And that means, as much as I personally I'm a big opponent of synthetic chemicals, of agropoisons.
Yeah.
But that means that, if you are a farmer at the moment, an arable farmer or whatever you're doing, and you're using pesticides and you're using fungicides and herbicides, there is a path for you, there is a place for you in regenerative agriculture. You can't just start to become regenerative.
It
Okay.
takes time.
Nobody's kept outside, right? It's
Yeah.
not like you cannot do it because you use glyphosate, for example.
Yeah.
No, we want to reduce and actually eliminate it, but you can start to go onto your regenerative journey.
Yeah.
And that is something that is a huge difference to other principles.
Yes. What I understood, I'm familiar with the work of Mr. Alain Savary.
Hmm.
He is from Zimbabwe, and
Hmm.
his method is used in more than 7 million hectares at the moment. So worldwide, in Australia, United States, and several parts in Africa. And his method is holistic management. It's about the method of management of grazing animals. They put larger herds and take them from one. It's complicated technically, but it's for me personally, it's the most promising solution to biodiversity in the long term. Reverse the desertification and yes, and also microclimate change is also has a big role.
Yes,
So I do
sure.
think that a combination of methods is very necessary to do that. And to be open, like you have done at the end, to be open also for ordinary farmers, to open the door
Yes.
for them. This is very important to have some of them on board in order to grow the regenerative movement. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that is, for example, that's one of the things that is part of regenerative agriculture, that is holistic grazing, Alan Savory, as you said.
Yeah.
And it's definitely worth to look into it if you are a rancher, if you produce meat, if you have animals, then you should definitely look into it. And I think, in my point of view, that is what mainstream big scale mainstream animal husbandry should look like.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that is actually where we go. Um, I wouldn't stop there though. And
Yeah.
that's the point. From a syntropic perspective, it's just one side of the whole thing. And I'm missing still a lot of trees, especially when we talk about everything that is derived from the ox. So all our cows, cattle,
Yeah.
they are animals that generally belong at the edge of the forest and into the forest, and they will also feed from so-called tree fodder, from leaves alongside.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And the traditional montado de heza agricultural systems that we had in northern Africa and in the Mediterranean, and we still have it actually, are based on an integration of the livestock into a silvopastoral system. So that means it's a system that is covered with trees, but it has also a lot of grass and a lot of herbs and bushes and things. And these systems are then mob grazed by bigger animals, That can be here we have the Iberian pig, the black pig that is often there. We have also systems that work with cattle, with cows. We have systems that work, of course, with sheep and goats. Although that is dangerous, especially sheep and goats at the same time. That is probably what deforested the whole North African continent a couple of thousand years ago, because that was mismanagement that was done that led to the death of the African oak forests, right? So
Yes.
from
Yeah.
east to west, the
Yeah.
continent was covered with lush green oaks, and
Yeah.
that system was actually destroyed also by overgrazing and especially using the wrong animals in the wrong density. And here I want to say it's really important that we look at the carrying capacity of systems,
Yeah.
also of microsystems. So where we operate as farmers, you cannot just put an infinite amount of cattle onto a small piece of land.
Yeah.
And even when you work with rotation, you need to look at what the ecosystem can actually provide. There's also other pitfalls in that. That is, for example, what what type of supplements do the cows get? Are they still treated with antibiotics, etc.? So for it does not mean that the soil is getting super biodiverse just because you put a couple of cows onto a place onto a grassland. You need to consider a lot of things doing that. But it is for sure, it should be um, the successor of what we see, like the type of modern factory farming that we have, which is the worst way of behaving and of cultivating and of producing food in my point of view. I'm not a vegan, although I love vegan food, but the way how most of our meat is produced is just absurd,
Yes.
criminal. It's a crime.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we need to look into things like holistic grazing to find ways out of that. Yes.
Yeah. I've done about almost 3 years with almost no beach. And I don't think that I will would like to repeat that in the future. That's not a good idea. Uh, you can feel it in your bones. There is something missing in the system, and many of my friends were vegan and they are not vegan anymore. So it's much more. But I do understand the argument from vegans and from vegetarian individuals. They have good points. Industrial, large scale, and what we see, what is the standard today is wrong. We need alternative. Mr. Alan Savory's work, it's the best alternative we have at the moment. I cannot think of something different than what he already achieved. But there is a big problem. The big problem I see, and this is why I started the project Garden Generator in 2020. I have understood from Mr. Alan Savory that a lot of people need to go on the land, on the countryside, and do business there. And taught about a lot about labor, about economic, and about housing. And such agriculture practices, in contrast to industrial agriculture, require a lot of labor. And that is a big problem when you have individuals working all the time and you have a small they produce just a small amount of products of food. And the other hand, you have industrial, large-scale pesticide, herbicides, and fungicides, and they produce so much food. Although this food is not good quality food, this one is not that good quality food. But on the market, there is big difference in payment and economic. So how can we reduce the labor work using, for example, technology, or you have some
Mhm.
ideas, some methods
Mhm.
you have encountered?
Yeah. No, I would like to actually zoom out a little bit to that
Yeah,
because, well, first, let me say first, there, of course, well, we live in a world where 40 to 60% of our food is nowadays produced industrially, which also means that we have at least 40% still being produced by smallholders.
yeah,
So that's people, we talk about like maximum 2 hectares of land or so. Um, and especially in the global south, we still have a lot of smallholder farms. And I disagree with the industrial model um, because exactly what you have said, it produces quantity. It produces also high quantity at low capital costs, money
yeah.
costs. But all the costs that are really there are externalized to nature and to people, for example,
The
for
good
health.
points, good points.
So to me, it's a dead end road.
Yeah,
So it actually should fail. Modern industrial agriculture has to fail if we as a species want to survive on this planet.
yeah,
But I also see that we need a transition. We need a way, a path, even if we don't really see it yet, but there has to be a path to go from that type of agriculture to a system that is sustainable, regenerative, circular. Okay. Um, syntropic farming offers actually a model and a framework to go there. And it is also built to be scaled up. So it can be done by the help of machines. It's not a chaotic garden. It's not a chaotic food forests where you have to walk through a thick forest to find a cherry tree once and here and there if
yeah,
you want to harvest. It is organized in a way that machines can help us. Harvesting can help us planting, can help us pruning, etc. And
yeah,
I'm also obviously not against the use of tools. We as apes are cognitively capable of using highly developed tools and to leverage the effects and our efficiency that
yeah,
we have. And we should really use that. It's a gift from evolution and from Mother Nature that we can do that. Okay. But I would like to share a little bit my vision that I have when it comes to the future of agriculture and what we should actually strive for. So we are so used to the concept of scaling up. But what scaling up means is if you let's take an example that most of us know. If you take a bath, a soap bath, a bubble bath, then scaling up is one soap bubble that is just growing and growing and growing and growing and growing.
yeah.
So it does exactly that, what our farms are doing. It grows more and more, and it's very simple, and it gets enormously fragile the bigger it gets.
Yes,
So, if I just do this, it will burst. And
yeah,
that's collapse, right? A total collapse and not just a progress. It's really like, okay, collapsed. The bubble collapsed. So, contrary to this, we can imagine a system that at RECELIO we call deep scaling. And that you can compare to the soap foam that you see in the bathtub. So it's a system that consists of bubbles of different sizes. And this system gets very stable altogether. It balances it out, and it is way more resilient than just one big bubble. So it all comes and goes with our goals that we want to achieve with our agriculture. If it is just more quantity, faster, at lower price, that's what we're
Yeah.
doing, right?
Yeah.
Since the Second World War.
Yeah.
Then scaling up is the thing. That's what we want to do. We want to simplify, we want to rationalize, we want to save costs everywhere, we want to mechanize, etc.
Yeah.
But as soon as you understand that this type of agriculture will not work anymore, it starts failing massively already, then you understand the importance for resilience. And at that point, we talk about a completely different system, and then we need to scale deep. And that means we need to go back to smaller entities, way more local, regional, with a lot of human involvement. We belong to this. We humans are made to be guardians and stewards of the land.
Yeah.
And this is our, or one of our inherent functions that I have spoken before at the beginning of our talk.
Yeah.
So we need to do that. And that means we have to bring people back to the land and the land back to the people. And we need to find ways to cut out the middleman, to cut out the blood-sucking industry that sells agropoisons and chemical fertilizers and GMO seeds
Yeah.
to farmers with the promise of prosperity and, like, economical gains. And we need to reorient. We need to really refocus on what we really want to do. So we need to massively relocalize our agriculture. And that means that we need to have people on the land.
Yeah. Great
Let me,
points, group. I love
yeah,
it.
let me say another thing.
Yeah.
Say another thing. You will like it maybe. Like, it's about technology.
Yes.
So we have, especially in the last years, developed a lot of ways of sensing things and
Yeah.
of knowing scientifically about soil structure, about, like, ecosystem health, about carbon sequestration, about all these things, biodiversity.
Yeah.
We have new systems that allow us to get a good image of biodiversity, be it environmental DNA, be it eco or bioacoustics, be it remote sensing via satellites. There's really amazing progress in these things, and that's all good. But that is linear, mechanistic human technology, and that is nothing compared to millions of years or even billions of years of evolution that equipped us with the best sensors and best senses as humans
Yeah.
to understand what's happening in our ecosystem and to do the right things when it's needed. We have just forgotten about that.
Yeah.
Othmane, you and I, we have forgotten. We come from, the last generations, they didn't transport that knowledge to us
Yeah,
anymore.
although
So
although I have a good experience because of my grandmother. As I was a child, I was a lot with my grandmother, so I kind of
there's
remember
she
things.
gave you the nature bug.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
no, but also I was grown up directly on a swamp. That is
yeah,
very
that's the
important. It
same.
plays a lot in my head. This is why. But thank you very much for mentioning the what you work on, the idea of deep scaling instead of upscaling.
Yeah,
100% agree with your argument. And the bigger the bubble, the more damage there is. For the best example, you have talked before, you have mentioned that the systems are, there is similarities. And for example, you can see the 2007, 2008 economic bubble because of this business model were so big. It's a sort of a one bubble. When it pops up, it brought economic damage for all over the planet. So the same thing can apply to agriculture. So the bigger the business model, when this business model failed, we have mass famine, and we could face probably extinction or at least endangerment of the human species. Yeah,
Exactly. And look, it's like it's also on this biodiversity level. Because, if you want to scale up, you need to simplify. And that means less variety in crops, less variety in soil,
yeah,
biodiversity, etc. So you are working against syntropy. You are working with an entropic system. You work towards
yeah,
entropy. And that is also like that is a very, very interesting thing because that is also what makes syntropic farming to be different from most of the other ways regenerative farming is done because it has this strong um, scientific but um, also philosophical base, that it
yeah,
works with. So, because it works, as it says, with the principle of syntropy, contrary to
yeah,
working always with the principle of entropy. And that is something that a gentleman named Van der Pie came up with in the 60s of the last century. Um, because he saw that there is a force that which is complementary to entropy, and
yeah,
he called it syntropy. And entropy is the force that actually that reduces, that breaks apart, that brings complex systems into its components, right? Into its single components. And when that process is finished, then syntropy starts, and syntropy complexifies. Syntropy creates relations between components and assembles them to new ways of life.
yeah.
And that is what syntropic farming is based on. So when you use a farming framework, technique, or method, however you call it, that just reduces and just extracts, what you
Yeah.
create is death. If you want to create life, then you have to raise complexity within the system.
Yeah.
The more relationships there are, the better it is. And that is what we do to get a state of abundance. And abundance is really is the state of a system where you do not need inputs to get outputs. Okay, so and that is very, very different to how we think that agriculture works.
Yes, yes. I have a small comment. During my studies, in Germany, we have studied waste management. So, and I kind of have a different perspective than most people because I've done this module. I was failing this module 3 times, so I kind of repeated it several times and thought about it a lot. Uh, there is a lot of waste. We need additives, but not. I don't mean chemicals, synthetic, but we need biology. The rest of biology that we have in the cities has to go back into the land. It doesn't have to be the agricultural land, but it has to be the land, the forest, or something like that, because there is a lot of life. For example, in Morocco, they are talking about stopping the climate, but no one is talking about separating biological waste from the rest of the waste. This is very easy to do, but nobody is doing that. So that is the easiest thing because we need these additives like waste from fish. There is a lot of minerals there. These minerals, I would like to have them in the soil so that syntropy can happen, the microbiology can digest this material, and the plants can absorb them. So we need some additives, and by eliminating biological waste from human settlements. like
Yeah.
villages, cities. Oh,
I get you, and of course it's very important, especially with the when you look at urban living, and if you you look, we have cut ourselves from nature, and we have broken all cycles of life,
yeah,
and we do this even culturally by wanting to speed up birth and to avoid death. We try
yeah,
to escape the natural cycles.
yeah,
And that transports back to the way how we treat things. And nature doesn't know waste. The concept of waste is something that is not
yeah,
existent in nature. Okay. So, because the poop of one is the
yeah.
food of the next one, yeah, to say it
Yes,
drastically.
yeah, yeah,
And if we look at what we're doing with these linear systems in our settlements, then of course, when you look at that, we need to find ways to close those loops. And that means also that we should really stop to put our feces into drinking water, which we
yeah,
are still doing, which is insane. That means we have to switch to dry compost toilets, and we should also, as you say, not mix our biological waste
yeah,
with like all the nasty stuff. There's just a little bit of an issue with PFAS and with microplastics, because the waste, even though the biological waste that comes from cities is unfortunately contaminated with all these things, and the quality can be very low because of that. And there are technological approaches to that, and we need to work on that for sure. But I would like to go into this, what you have said, that additives are needed. Okay,
yeah,
so that's exactly what I mean. In regenerative agriculture is also something that is done and is in contrast to syntropic farming. Because we work in regenerative agriculture, for example, we would work with compost
ouais,
or with organic fertilizers or something like that. And syntropic farming doesn't. So syntropic farming works really process based, and it is um, the principle of life creating conditions for life that makes the whole thing working without additives,
yeah,
right? Especially humanly brought in additives. If you look at a forest, there's nobody bringing in compost to the forest. There's nobody fertilizing or killing herbs with herbicides there. That's not what's happening. The thing is in itself works in a way that life creates the conditions for life. And that again creates a state of abundance where you can feed from fruit and nuts and roots and bark and from all and leaves and all these
yeah,
things within a forest without depleting it. It's an extra surplus. It is an offer from the system to cooperate, because what we see is cooperation is king in nature. And every
yes,
time, a plant produces a fruit or a nut or an edible leaf, then that is an offer for cooperation for another species that can cooperate. And we as humans, we would cooperate because we would eat it, and then we
yeah,
would carry the seeds somewhere else. And that means that we contribute to the survival and the thriving of the species that we have just used as a food. So that means also that in syntropic farming, we do not bring in compost, fertilizer, etc. What we do is we use pruning massively, and we leave this type of material inside of the system.
yeah,
And also by introducing animals and promoting wild animals in the systems, we are also accelerating the whole system and bringing in the fertilizer component, for example. But it happens all in situ. So it's really there where it's done. What we also look at is we have this type of systemic view of things and a broad holistic view on things, and we do not want to deplete one place to nourish another. And that is what you effectively do with compost, right?
Yeah.
Of course, your urban setting is a completely different
Yeah.
animal. Like that's something else.
Yeah.
But in farms, nowadays, you need to really, farmers, they need to calculate like how much seeds do I need, how much fertilizer will I need, how much water will I need, how much work will I need, how much do the machines cost that I need to do the work, etc.
Yeah.
And these are all the things that seems for us nowadays natural to do it like that. But it doesn't need to be done like that. We can do a process-based agriculture that is not depending on inputs.
Yeah.
So when we start a system in syntropic farming, we might use the window of opportunity to do certain things, right? So we might use like a stone meal or so, or we might use some compost, or we might bring in some mulch at the beginning. We might even, for example, I here in a dry Mediterranean climate during the summer months, I'm watering my system in the first 3 to 4 years, my trees, but then I don't need that anymore. And you see again, it's also outcome oriented. In the beginning, I do, but I stop doing it. And I just want to say that this is possible. This is actually our exit, the exit for humans out of this type of or input dependent agriculture, where we deplete other places to then actually nourish the place that where we grow our food. So it's possible.
Yes, it's possible. You have mentioned before, you have described syntropic farming and regenerative farming as resilience. Uh,
Hmm. Yeah.
Resilience for me is a low goal. I'm up to anti-fragile. Uh, I explain that first. Mr. Nassim Taleb is an American economist, and he describes anti-fragile as a thing that when it encounters difficulty, it does not break or stand, but it will be stronger. Each time there is a difficulty, the system grows stronger than before. Resilience is not, it's just gonna survive. So, gonna survive the hit, but it stays the same or a little bit weaker. Anti-fragile, it survives the hit, but it grows stronger. This is why there is a lot to think about when it comes to agriculture, how to make the system anti-fragile rather than just resilient. Any idea?
Yeah. Yes. Well, it's very interesting what you say, especially this definition of resilience that you brought up, that you say it's going to survive, it's going to kind of bounce back, but it's not going to get better, you
Yeah,
know. But that is the component of regeneration for me, actually, and the component of generation.
yeah,
And when you work with biodiversity, and syntropic farming creates biodiversity by design, it's built on the principle of biodiversity, then you create anti-fragility.
yeah,
Um, and this is like, I don't know if it's just nomenclature, but for me, it doesn't make that much of a difference. So I would say, like, check mark, Othman. We have anti-fragility covered with
that's
syntropic
good.
farming.
Good to
We
know.
got it. So no, also because it is dynamic and adapts, of course, to um, disturbance. What the magic is that it becomes kind of self-managing. So, but really on a hollow beyond level. So we see the system that we co-create together with nature as a type of living being, as a hollow beyond,
Yeah,
and that system uh, is co-managing with us. Okay, so
yeah,
generally, one of the biggest principles for us is that um, we are not the intelligence of the system. We are part of an intelligent system,
yes.
and that
Yeah,
is very, very different to the general view on what humans are, and what we did the last
Yeah.
couple of 100 years.
Yeah.
Um, so we try to mimic nature. We try to step back. But before we do something, we actually look what we maybe couldn't do. Can we avoid some actions? Can we
Yeah.
step back? Can we leave it? Can we? So that is the first thing. So step back, take a deep breath, look
Yeah.
at it, and
Yeah.
think, is it really necessary that I act here? Then if what are the outcomes of my actions and what are the desired outcomes and where can I assist here and there to a process that is natural and that is defined by a higher intelligence, and
Yeah.
not by myself. So, so yeah, and again, like I can tell you that syntropic farming systems are the most resilient and anti-fragile agricultural systems
Yeah.
on Earth, productive systems, land use systems on Earth. And often they are even more biodiverse than semi-natural systems. They have more potential on biodiversity than just conserved and separated, spared areas of land. And it's also not surprising that the most biodiverse systems on Earth are managed by indigenous
Yeah.
because we are part of nature and of Earth. We
Yeah.
are an important species. And, taking us out is also a type of depletion.
Yes.
Issue is just that most of us have stopped to understand what our function is in nature. That is the issue.
Yeah.
It's not that the human is bad. It's not that humans are bad and destroying nature. No, that's not a human feature that we do this. It's
Yeah.
just that a lot of us have come off the right path. We are brainwashed by an industrial system that is based on warfare.
Uh,
It's not a
it,
type. It's not a coincidence, Othman, that we like look the Haber-Bosch process of creating synthetic fertilizer is a product of war technology. The whole type of how we see nature in our industrial agriculture is a type of warfare. We
against
fight.
nature. Yeah.
Yes, we fight the whole time. It's
Yeah.
always war. It's
Yeah.
competition, it's
Yeah.
war, it's
Yeah.
weapons. It's exactly what we do. And well, yeah, that is what has brought us where we are. That's why we are in collapse. And I would
Uh,
say that it'd be clever to look in a different direction, maybe.
yes, I kind of invested the last year in one of the most complex topics there is, which is the human condition. What do you mean by war, complex, many colors, deep states, or that, this and that? There is a lot of names to it. But the simple way to see it is there is a big problem. We go back to Adam and Eve's story, which is we have acquired consciousness. Our brain got many functions than other species, and through that, we kind of become thoughtful, we able to think. And what we have seen in the last few centuries is we have gone the road to the end. So we kind of became very destructive in our behavior, which is angry, egocentric, and alienated. These are the main, and we are alienated from nature, alienated from our place in the environment. We feel angry about it. This is why we drink, we take drugs. Look at the general population. Everybody is drugged. You go to drugs from either from the pharmacy or from the drug dealer. It is a big problem, and thankfully we have the solution. Mr. Jeremy Griffiths wrote an amazing book, the book named Freedom, The End of the Human Condition. He explains everything in details. and he goes back to the moment where it starts, and each has to do with agriculture. So I highly recommend this book. And in his conclusion, he concludes that we human beings are our original instinct or intuition is cooperative, loving, nurturing. So we are not the other side. It's just a product of a psychosis due to the human condition. And now we have the scientific basis how to solve this. Now, and then we go back to syntropic agriculture, and when we have concluded that we human beings are fundamentally good, so with artificial intelligence coming, we are going to see massive job loss everywhere. In China, we have already started to see that. We are going to see that also in Europe and US and the third world everywhere. So agriculture it could be an alternative that many people who don't have jobs go back to the land, and then we have much more labor at hand. It will be difficult to address, but it's going to solve the human condition because people are going to have meaning in life. And as I moved back from Germany, I was compelled to move back because I was not doing well mentally. So I had a lot of stress studying mechanistic engineering, and I love mechanistic engineering, by the way. But I was not in a place of comfort. I was stressed all the time. When I came back, I had to do a lot with plants, observe plants, catch plants, plants. So it's
Hmm.
kind of helped me a lot in
Yes.
getting my emotional, physical stress level down. So it's optimistic what you have teach me today about syntropic agriculture, and I kind of link it to meaning of life and solution to a job loss by artificial intelligence, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's probably a good
Yeah,
thing.
you see, it could be a good thing.
It
Yes.
could be, yes.
Yeah, it could be a good thing. Now, this is the thing, like this technology brings a lot of bad things and a lot of good things, and it's in our hands
Yeah,
um, to try to also use it for good purpose and not just for competition and for making more even in even shorter time. But I'm Generation X, and I still remember when personal computers were invented, and everybody was talking about how much time personal computers would give us finally, so that we didn't need to work so much.
yeah,
And it only accelerated everything. And AI, that's really a different topic here. It's way too big to go too deep into it. But AI is massively accelerating the acceleration. It's really an exponential technology, and it's going to wreak havoc. And yes, coming back to agriculture and the opportunity that it brings, to me, our society, our civilization is in an accelerating progress of collapse. And it will be given that people will also go back to the land. Our cities, as they are entropic death traps, and they cannot persist
yeah.
as they are. There are a lot of concepts how to change that. And I have also been an urban dweller for a time in my life, so I
Yeah.
enjoy
I'm also
also a
working on that,
big
but
city.
I'm less optimistic about
Yeah.
cities. Yeah.
So yes, I share that. I'm also, I'm not so optimistic. Of course, cities can just, I mean, the cities themselves can somehow stay, but at a way, way lesser density of population.
Yeah.
And, urban farming needs to be like boom, like needs to, like when you look at how Paris was organized before the Industrial Revolution, with a lot of market gardens around it, like a belt of market gardens around Paris.
Yeah.
That's something how bigger settlements can probably still work, but we have to see if that is actually a model that we can sustain in the future. But yes, it will bring us way more farm hands. It will bring us people that want to reconnect to nature and want to reconnect to the land, might even want to re-indigenize and learn all about being a part of nature and the ecosystem and contributing positively to it. That is a positive future that we can see that is possible.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would like to see that together with syntropic farming. As I said,
Yeah.
we can use all these people and it would be great to have them.
It would be, we need, I kind of, there is many talk about the Goliath, uh, the monster we are facing. I kind of see it as a fusion between greed and ignorance. About greed, I can do nothing about it. It's very difficult to deal with that. But about ignorance, we need to fight that. Ignorance can be fought by sharing knowledge. So this is why I started this podcast. I wanted to share some useful knowledge with my fellow beings, and I'm going to come back and inject a few ideas that I have about urbanization. Urbanization maximizes the human condition. It produces perversion. It produces psychopathy. It produces a lot of psychological issues. Not alone when we start about talking about the environments, for example, where I am now and the neighboring areas. As I was a child, I you could put your head on the sky and you see thousands and thousands of birds. It was like a paradise. Even one of the best singers, French singers, Mr. Jacques Brel, he was living here for a period, and he describes it as a paradise. But unfortunately, due to radical urbanization, there is a difference between urbanization and radical urbanization. Radical urbanization, you okay, drain the swamp, cut the trees, do whatever you want. Yeah, bring money. That's it. And it is taking place here on the coast of Morocco and in most countries in the world. And unfortunately, this will have a big effect on the ocean, on the fish, because the birds, you have mentioned that before, when they pee or poo, there is a rich in microbiology, and it creates life in the ocean. And so we have to feed the cities with water, we have created dams. And normally the rivers take minerals and bacteria and microorganisms from everywhere from the land and brings it to the ocean. Now we have cut this process, so there is no microorganism, there is no minerals go into the ocean. And what we have done, created the cities that consume this water directly on the ocean. And what produces city? Yeah, shampoos, toxins everywhere. When you look at what humans do, it's mostly toxins, and even in food. And it's a big issue. That's the collapse. I do think there is urbanization, limits to urbanization, and regulation of urbanization will be necessary before talking about agriculture, definitely, because it's gigantic of scale, because we need people on the land. And the idea that I'm working on since a few years now is how to construct villages of the future. So alternatives to big cities. So villages of a couple hundred of people, a couple of thousands of people everywhere on the land. And when they consume water, the water waste, it's actually no waste. will be used and filtrated by other plants. So it stays on the land. We don't send this water to the ocean. So I think when we could bring take people's attentions to this issue of radical urbanization and start working on alternatives like villages, small cities far away in many areas. In those villages, the inhabitants of those villages could work using regenerative agricultural practices, raise animal holistically, use agroforestry, don't waste the water and throw it directly in the ocean. So then we could have a good chance of recovery. Yeah. What do you think about my idea?
Yeah, you have said so many things, and I could tap into a lot of points
Yeah.
that you brought up. Yes. And so I had said it before, like we have broken all cycles that you can imagine,
Yeah.
really on all levels, where
Yeah.
we try to make life linear,
Yeah.
and never ending, and
Yeah.
always growing and becoming more and richer and richer, and
Yeah.
extract even more. This cannot work. And what you have said about about the birds and about the nutrients, leaf runoff, the micro organisms that run off leaves from trees and go then into rivers and go into the sea, they are feeding the plankton.
Yeah.
And the plankton is responsible for over 50% of oxygen production.
Yeah.
And this plankton is, um, it doesn't get the nutrients it should get, and it gets the nutrients it shouldn't get, and it gets a lot of microplastic, nanoplastic, and it clogs up. And the oceans are acidifying, exactly.
Yeah.
And that the change of pH changes the conditions of the ocean so much that, I mean, there's even a type of cliff falling from the cliff moment where the oceans are actually dying, and they will die. And we're seeing this now already, that we're turning from a blue planet to a green planet, but not in a good way, because the oceans turn green. They change the color. We have a lot of effects that we see, like animals going crazy, marine animals going crazy,
Yeah.
like changing
I
behavior.
witnessed some of them. Yeah.
So, so this is all connected, and we should never think that these things are somehow separatable. They cannot be separated, and you know, it's all together. And of course, the ocean and the land usage are connected to each other. And what you have described about the urbanization and the possible future urbanization or urban living, or call it even settlement.
Settlements
um,
is good one. Yeah.
yeah, so that is deep scaling again.
Yeah.
That's not upscaling. You know, Marrakesh, that's upscaling.
Yeah. That's
But if
upscale.
Yeah, you see, but if you want to do it in the right way, then you will try to scale deep and not to scale up. And yes, so yeah, that is the stuff we should work on, and that is also worked on already. And yeah, we have all to learn, and we have to unlearn a lot of things that we had learned before.
Yeah.
And we need to promote these new ways of living and these new ways of organization and urbanization, and yeah, and strive for that type of future. Because yeah, if we survive as a species, then like that,
Yeah.
and not in big cities. So that's clear. So, you
Yeah.
know, why trying to continue to sustain something that is inherently unsustainable, if we could also focus and put our energy into things that are actually building models for the future, that are resilient, that are future proof, and that offer at least a possibility to survive,
Yes,
so
and meaning of life. When people have meaning,
yes.
they live a beautiful life and a healthy life. And on a village, you can have elderly say and take care of the
Yes.
children. They have passing of
Yeah.
wisdom. But in the cities, it's very difficult. You have a
It's
lot of
another
costs. Yeah.
another
Uh,
cycle that we broke, by the way.
yeah,
That's the intergenerational cycle.
yeah,
Education has, before industrial times, always been a type of storytelling from the elders to the young generations.
yeah,
And, you know, that means to tap into deep wisdom and knowledge, and not just into knowledge, right? It taps
yeah,
into wisdom, which is a combination of knowledge and experience. So, it's way mightier
yeah,
and universal than the type of industrial education that we have, that is also derived from a military system,
yeah, yeah,
again,
yeah,
from war, so um, and we broke that. And nowadays we even say, yeah, kids belong into school, that in school needs to be education,
yeah,
but that is already also separating us from real education,
yeah,
which has been given from one generation to the next, and next thing, intra-generational as well, because children learn best together with other children and from each other. So, and these things we try to avoid and break and manage and
yeah,
forbid in our schools. And this is also, you see, this is like, it is a type of theme that you will find in all our systems. It
yeah.
is the story of separation that we suffer from. And you have talked about Adam and Eve, the Exodus story is exactly that.
Centralization and decentralization. This is a very interesting thing to do. Like when you say the bubble upscaling, this is centralization. Centralization, the risks are higher. When you have decentralization and many smaller bubbles, different sizes, this is decentralization. And when you have a few of them pop up, so the system doesn't break down. So it is, by definition, at least resilience. It could also be anti-fragile. That's a point that one should take deeper look into it. Also, what I have understood from syntropic farming, it is an antidote to monoculture. Is that right?
Yes, of
Yes,
course.
great,
Yeah.
great. Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
but monoculture doesn't exist in nature.
yeah.
Aside of very, very tiny patches of monoculture that can exist, but not large scale monoculture, no.
No. Okay, and this is my last question. How could we make the market aware of the the benefits of regenerative food,
Mhm.
so that people pay a little bit more on such
Yeah, that's
produce?
a that's a big, big question. I don't believe in a system that makes people to pay more,
Yeah,
because if you look at organic, at bio,
yeah,
we are hovering around like 3% or so of organic food,
yeah,
and it exists since decades.
yeah,
So, what systemically, on one hand, seems kind of logical, which is, okay, the farmers need to do an extra effort, and for that, they need extra money. So, we need to pay an extra to the farmers. So, that extra we need to get from somewhere. So, we get it from the consumers.
yeah,
So, now we need to raise awareness on the consumer side for consumers to actually be willing to spend more.
yes,
And that looked kind of like logical. Like that was like, okay, yeah, okay, we can do it like that in our capitalist system.
yeah,
The problem is that as soon as people come under economical pressure, biological food becomes completely, or organic food becomes completely irrelevant. And I see this here where I
yeah,
live, where with the start of the pandemics, we see less and less and less organic food in the shelves of the supermarkets. And we have been already rolled over by big supermarkets here in the region where I live. So there is no small commerce, no significant small commerce anymore. It's nearly completely dead. It's some here and there, but it's really like, so everybody has to go to big supermarkets.
Yeah.
Even I live from our land, and I live like, we try to be like as much as organic as we can, but to get organic food, at the moment, because we had a CSA here where I was part of, and unfortunately they gave up the business also because of economical pressure. They couldn't sustain the farm anymore. So now I need to go to the supermarket to buy some type of food, some type of ingredients that
Yeah.
are organic. So, okay, so when it comes to regenerative agriculture and how can we make the market to acknowledge it, I don't believe in creating certifications and in creating a regenerative brand as a vehicle to achieve a price gain, like to have like more money to actually sell at higher price at an extra. Um, I don't believe in that. I don't think it's a system that's future proof. What I think should happen and will probably happen is that our mainstream agriculture becomes regenerative out of all reasons, because we cannot continue anymore as we did. It doesn't
Yeah.
work. It will collapse. So
Yeah.
there is only the way of like, okay, we need to shift towards resilient local food systems,
Yeah.
and they will be regenerative because that's the principle of it, how to do it. It needs
Yeah.
to be regenerative instead of degenerative or extractive only. And yeah, but well, we still need a lot of information and interest and awareness. And by just presenting facts and scientific studies, we're not going to do this. In my point of view, it's a cultural task. We need to culturally bring that into the minds and hearts of people, and that's probably a longer journey than we would like it to be, but that's
Ouais.
how it needs to go. I also don't believe in the principle of teaching. I believe in the principle of learning,
Yeah.
which means that it has to be self-directed and self-paced. And that is why, like we have to create interest, and from that comes awareness, and that is followed by commitment. And when we have commitment, then hopefully we're also going to have action. And that
Yeah.
is what changes things in this world. So
Yeah.
it's always these four stages where we need to go through. So for me, it means that I'm continuing to work on making people to be interested in it
Yeah.
and to raise awareness and to get people to commit to it so that we can then take action. And that's what I try to do. And that means that I try to build bridges and to try to translate the regenerative language into a language that is easier to comprehend for people that are still operating in the old paradigm.
Yeah.
And that's part of my job, my daily job, and what I'm doing, my purpose.
Yeah, that's great, Christian. Thank you very much for your time and for all the knowledge you have shared with us. I kind of hope people will learn from it, and many will get interested about syntropic farming and about some of the ideas we have shared today. And thank you very much for coming on my show. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me and giving me the opportunity to share that with you guys. And I have also learned a couple of things from you today. So it was very valuable. And yeah, I wish you all the best. And yeah, I hope that some people got interested in syntropic farming and in biodiversity as one of our most important topics of our times.